Good evening.
Evening.
Oh, tough crowd.
How you doing?
Good evening.
Good evening.
So, my name is Michael Deleon, and like Dave said, I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm not home very much. I was actually on the road last year 331 days for the year. It's like almost the whole year. I'm not home very much. I mean, I should probably tell people I don't live in Nashville, I live at the Holiday Inn, you know, but that was a lot funnier in my head. I'm always on the road, right? And I travel the country, and I go to schools. I talk to kids in schools about drugs. Middle school, high school, elementary school, college. I talk to kids about drugs, what they do to the brain, what they do to the body. And I know a lot about it because I did a lot of drugs. And I affected my brain, and I affected my body. And I don't know that either one is recovered, but here I am. I go to schools and I talk to kids, I educate kids, and I speak for a presentation. And I have a very in-depth, systemic, comprehensive program that I lead with schools. Elementary kids get one program, middle school kids get another, college kids get another, high school kids get another. And I'm building a recovery army. I know a lot of people in this room heard the talking point, the expression, the war on drugs, right? The war on drugs. I know a lot of people like to throw that expression around. The war on drugs didn't work. Trust me when I tell you, there was never a war on drugs, ever, okay? The war was on drug addicts. The war was on drug addicts. And the intention of the war was to build a prison industrial complex. And it's exactly what happened in our country. It worked perfectly. When people say the war on drugs didn't work, I say, well, it wasn't a war on drugs, it was a war on drug addicts, and it unfolded exactly as they wanted it to unfold. And it was built on the backs of minorities, the poor, addicts, and the mentally ill. That's what the war was built upon. The war was on addicts. And I want a new war. I want a war on addiction. So I'm trying to start a war on addiction, and I need an army. I need an army of people in recovery, a recovery army. So I'm going to be partnering in some capacity, it's not known yet, but in some capacity with Crossroads, because I believe that this program and the leadership of this program have the same vision that I do, and I want to end addiction in America, right? Now, I'm pretty naive, I guess. Can I end addiction in America? Hell no. But we can end addiction in our lives. And if we can end addiction in our kids' lives, and all the kids that our kids come in touch with, we can reduce addiction in America by 60% in the next 7 years. So it's my goal, right? How many of you in this room are parents? How many of you are parents? So almost every single one of you. Well, you don't want your kids following in your footsteps. You know, once you've hit a crossroad and you take a new path, you want to make sure your kids travel in the right path. Because most people who travel in our path, they don't make it, right? How many of you in this room have overdosed before? How many of you in this room have overdosed on multiple occasions? How many of you in this room have been arrested before? How many of you have been arrested on multiple occasions? How many of you in this room have been done time before? How many of you, the first time you got locked up, said that was the last time you were going to get locked up? All right, so how many of you have been in recovery before but relapsed? This is the last time. This is the last time. There's no one in this room going to relapse after this. Speaking in God's name over every single one of you. You will never relapse again. Because let me tell you something. Relapsing now, it's a death sentence. Relapse is like playing Russian roulette. You know Russian roulette. You got a gun, you put a bullet in a chamber, and you spin it. Think about the odds of Russian roulette. If you look at the odds, right, they're pretty damn good. I mean, if the sign over the game at the casino said 5 out of 6 people who play this game win it, I don't know about you, I'm playing that game. Those are damn good odds. 5 out of 6 winners? Oh, yeah. This is my game for the night, right? I'm going to play it. But 5 out of 6 odds with Russian roulette, I'm not playing that game. I don't know about anybody in this room. Trust me when I tell you, I'm going to get that 1. That's how my luck is. Like, I'm not going to get the 5. I'm going to get the 1, and I don't want the 1 because the 1 means death. The 1 one means it's all over. So I'm not going to play Russian roulette. But Russian roulette now, relapse now, it's 5 bullets in the gun, sometimes 6. You don't got a chance, my man. It's fentanyl. And I don't know if you know this, but you live in the #1 state in America for fentanyl. Arizona is numero uno, and there's not another state that comes close to Arizona. 2/3 of all the counterfeit pills that have been confiscated in America in the last 12 months have been confiscated in Arizona. This is ground zero. So my focus is on Arizona, on the schools, on recovery community, and changing what's happening. You also might not understand and know and realize that recovery, abstinence-based recovery, which in my book, that's what the fuck recovery is, abstinence-based recovery. I don't know if you understand this, it's under attack. Abstinence-based recovery is under attack. There's a lot of pathways, and I celebrate them all, I support them all. There's a lot of pathways to recovery. But as long as abstinence is not your ultimate goal, I'm sorry, you're not on a path to recovery. If abstinence is not the goal, marijuana maintenance, Suboxone for 10 years, methadone for 20 years, no. I'm glad I got clean when I did, because I'm scared to death for people who are trying to get clean right now. Whether you were in this room with a week, you were in this room celebrating a month, where's my man with a month? There he is, my man with a month. Whether you have longer than that's irrelevant. You're on a path. Abstinence is your goal. Abstinence is your only option. Because China, the cartels, the syndicates, they have one goal. They have one goal right now. And they're almost big, they're almost as big as the largest cartel in America, the pharmaceutical industry. The second largest cartel in America is big tobacco. And I ain't talking about cigarettes. I'm talking about big tobacco. So vaping, weed, and tobacco. That's big tobacco. And the next biggest cartel is the cartel that protects the first two, the trial lawyers of our country. So pharmaceutical industry, tobacco industry, and the trial lawyers. So what we have to do is we have to join an army, be an army, and look after our kids, and look after each other. And that's what I'm asking you to look at as we move forward. So, I wasn't born in this country. I was born in Ireland. I came to America when I was 5. I was the happiest little dude in the world. I really was, man. Life was perfect. I had a perfect little life. Little brother, little sister, a family full of love. You know, every day was Valentine's Day at our house, man. My parents got along, right? And I had a house full of love. And I was the happiest kid in this country. I loved life. And I never missed a day of school. Like, I never missed a day of school. Not so much because I loved school, but I never missed a day of school because that's where I got breakfast and lunch. I don't know if you could relate to this. If I didn't make it to school, I didn't eat. I was poor. We were dirt poor. I think we were the poorest family in New Jersey. That's where my family chose to live. We left beautiful Ireland for New Jersey. Yeah. So I grew up in Jersey, and I was definitely, probably the poorest family in the state. We didn't have anything. If I didn't make it to school, I didn't eat. I was in Michigan a couple weeks ago when they were having a snowstorm the night before the presentation. And I was at the TV in the morning, like praying that there wouldn't be a snow day because I wanted to go talk to the kids in the school. And I remember when I was a kid, right? We didn't have a TV. I wasn't in front of the TV. But I was on a radio. We didn't have a TV. We were so poor. I was on a radio praying that there wouldn't be a snow day. Because if I got a snow day and I didn't go to school, the only thing I was going to eat that day was snow. We were poor. Sometimes at night, it was a light dinner. Like I used to eat a Wish sandwich. I don't know if you know what that is. It's 2 pieces of bread. You wish like hell there was something in between them. You know what I mean? Maybe salt or mayonnaise or something like that. But peanut butter sandwich with no jelly. Like whatever was I could put on bread. It was a rough childhood. I look at these kids every year. They're doing back to school shopping. You know what I'm saying? Back to school shopping. I never went back to school shopping a day in my life. Back to porch shopping because the neighbors felt sorry for us, so they'd leave their kids' old clothes and paper bags on our front porch, and that's where I got my clothes for school, back to school shopping. We were poor, you know what I'm saying? But I didn't even know it because I was so happy. Like, I really probably didn't even know the difference between rich and poor. I was happy. And the only thing wrong in my life, the only thing wrong up until 5th grade, was that my dad was always on the road. He was an aeronautical engineer and a pilot, and he was always on the road. And my dad would be gone before we got up for school in the morning. He wouldn't get home until we were already in bed at night. I didn't see my old man a lot Monday through Friday, and it was hard. It was really hard. That was hard. But my mom, she really made it easier on us. She did. She made it easier on us. She tried to tell my dad that, she tried to tell me that my dad was on the road. He was so important. He was so far away. But your daddy goes to these exotic places. He's so important. Your daddy works for the federal government. And I was like, really? My dad fixed planes for the Air Force, okay? But technically, he worked for the federal government. Your dad's in all these exotic places. And I was like, really, Mom? Where is he? And she'd be like, he's in Pennsylvania. And I'm like, you're kidding. And I'd run and tell the teacher my daddy's in Pennsylvania. And they'd be like, yeah, it's 15 minutes down the road, kid. What's the matter? No, it must be a different Pennsylvania. My dad's off in Connecticut. They'd be like, Connecticut? No, Connecticut's got a sea. It's far away. One time my mom told me my dad was in Massachusetts. I ran to the Globe in the living room, and I found Massachusetts, except I mixed it up with Macedonia. And I ran to the school and told the counselor that my dad was in Macedonia. And they were like, really? Yeah, he comes home on Tuesday. I was a little naive little kid, you know? But my mom made it easier to miss my daddy all the time. That's how she did it. So one day I got off the bus. It was 2 months left in school. It was May. My dad was in the driveway packing up his car. Yo, I was so stoked because I was going to find out for myself where he was going. I wasn't going to have to hear it from my mother. So I ran across the lawn, up the driveway, and I was like, Daddy, Daddy, where are you going this time? And he goes, ask your mother. Okay, I wanted to hear it from you, but when are you going to be home? And he's like, go ask your mother. So I ran in the house, asked my mom where my dad was going, and my mom told me dad was going to divorce. And I was like, where's that? Is it far? I ran to the Globe in the living room, and I couldn't find divorce, man. I looked on the whole fucking world globe, and I couldn't find divorce. And I went, Mommy, I can't find it. Where is it? She's like, you need to sit down. And she told me I was going to go to Daddy's house every other weekend. And I was like, what do you mean, Mom? This is Daddy's house and Mommy's house. I don't understand, Mom. Where's divorce? Where's divorce? Yeah, I didn't get it. I told you I was pretty naive. But kids in schools all across the country look at me when I'm telling this story. And I get to the part where my mom told me dad was going to divorce, and you can feel the room. Because 7 out of 10 American marriages end in divorce. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. 60, 70% of American marriages end in divorce. But when we were their age, it wasn't that way. It wasn't that way. I know one other kid in all my high school and middle school years whose parents got divorced. One. Maybe there were more, but nobody talked about it. I didn't want to talk about it either. Talking about it hurt, yo. And I hurt like hell. So I wasn't going to talk about it. I wouldn't talk about it to no one. And before the end of the first marking period of 6th grade, I was a D and F student. And the D's were gifts. I never got in trouble in elementary school ever. Now I'm putting my hands on other kids. I'm flipping over desks. I'm cursing out teachers. I couldn't handle it. My life and my world was shredded in half. And I couldn't handle it. Not in my heart, not in my head. And I had a 6th grade counselor. Her name was Mrs. Cogan, right? She came to pull me out of 6th grade class. She put me up against the wall in the hallway, and she leaned down with her squeaky little voice, and she'd be like, Michael, how's it going at home? And I put my hand up in her face, and I said, I'm good. And she pushed my hand out. She said, stop talking to me. How's it going at home? I said, I'm good. And she said, stop, talk to me. I want to tell you, I want to talk to you. I want you to talk to me. Tell me what's going on. I'm fine. I told the principal I was fine, the coach, man. I told everybody, every adult in that school I was fine. But I wasn't fine. I wasn't fine at all. Well, one day my mom comes to pick me up suspended again. And the principal says to my mom, listen, what's going on with you and your husband is affecting your child. His grades and his behavior. And he won't talk to any of us. You're going to have to get somebody to talk to your kid. And my mom's like, okay, I'll take him for some counseling. So my mom runs me down to church, and the priest that was in charge of all us altar boys said, well, I'll be happy to counsel your son. And he counseled me, and he sexually molested me 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Molested by a pedophile priest. I didn't want to talk about that at all. I refused to talk about that. You know, there's an amazing saying in the rooms, man. Your secrets make you sick. And we throw it out like it's a talking point. We throw it out like it's one of all of the traditions and principles and the sayings that we like to throw around. You know, keep coming back, it works if you work, and blah, fucking blah, fucking blah. Your secrets make you sick. But we never really think about it. And a lot of us say your secrets make you sick while we're carrying secrets. Oh, your secrets make you sick. Your secrets make you sick. Well, my secrets got me real fucking sick. Well, I didn't let my secrets go. I kept it to myself. There was 8 of us. 7 other boys were molested. They took that pedophile priest and they said, we're going to move him far, far away so he doesn't hurt your kids no more. And he went to Erie, Pennsylvania, where he molested 54 more older boys over the next 20 years. And I carried that hatred around of God my entire life. I hated priests, I hated the church. But most of all, I hated the person I saw in the mirror every day. And I don't even know who that person was. How can you hate somebody you don't know? It's kind of like racism. You hate somebody because of the color of their skin. You hate somebody because of an accent. You hate somebody because of a political ideology or a socio-ideology. You hate somebody you don't even know. Man, I'm looking in the mirror at me every day, and I don't even like the person I'm seeing in the mirror. I never dealt with that. That abuse stopped when I walked into high school, and I had these 2 uncles, these 2 Irish uncles. They were kind of well-meaning, but they beat the living crap out of me all 4 years of high school. They felt I wasn't a man, so they were going to make me into a man. That was what they were going to do. And their idea of making me into a man was beating me half to death all 4 years of high school. I wrestled freshman, junior, and senior year. The only year I didn't wrestle was my sophomore year because my Uncle Seamus punched me in the face so hard, he cracked my right eye socket. I couldn't wrestle that year. I told the principal I fell down my flight of stairs. I told the coach I fell off a skateboard. They got together and the story didn't match up, so they confronted me after school. What's the real story? No, I fell off my skateboarding downstairs. I learned how to become a good liar. A teacher said, why is your face all bruised up? Oh, my sister opened up a door in the hallway and I bumped into it. Why you got 3 broken fingers? Oh, I fell off my bicycle. Why is your arm in a sling? I fell off a brick wall. I'm good. I'm fine. Leave me alone. I'm good. Well, that child abuse lasted all through high school. All through high school. I was getting pretty big. Junior, senior year, I got pretty big. My 2 uncles, they were monsters, okay? And I couldn't beat both of them, and I suffered 4 years of child abuse through high school. You know, I didn't tell anybody about anything. I lied to my parents, I lied to school officials, I lied to the cops, I lied to everybody. And I didn't tell anybody what was going on, except one person I told. I was 11. In the middle of all this abuse, I was suspended from school again. My mom dropped me off at the house. She had to go back to work. She'd missed like 10 days of work already in the year because I was getting suspended all the time, right? So she dropped me off at the house to stay home in the house alone and not leave the house. Don't leave this house. Don't get in trouble. How many of y'all as a kid were told not to leave the house and you left the house anyway? How many of you as a kid were told not to get in trouble and you got in trouble anyway? I left the house and I got in trouble. I walked down the neighborhood to the basketball courts, and the older guys, you know, the ones in their 20s that weren't working all day, they were playing basketball. I guess today they'd be playing video games, you know what I'm saying? But the guys that weren't working, you know, they were kind of like, you know, misplaced entrepreneurs, you know what I mean? But anyway, there was a kid playing basketball with these guys. He was from our neighborhood. His name was Jimmy. He was 17. He was 6 years older than me, right? And he was playing ball with the older guys. And everybody thought he was so cool. You know, he was the coolest kid in the neighborhood, you know. He didn't have to go to school. I mean, he did get expelled, which is why he didn't go to school, but that's another story, right? He was the coolest kid in the neighborhood because the cops were always at his house, you know what I'm saying? That's how cool he was. Anyway, I was watching them play basketball. And he comes over after the game. He wipes the sweat off his face. He throws it in my face, and he's like, "How's it going, little man?" And I was like, "What's the matter?" "Nothing." "What's the matter, man?" "I don't want to talk about it." Well, I talked about it. I told him. I told him everything. I needed to tell someone, and I told him. He turns around, he grabs his backpack, he opens it up, he pulls a pack of cigarettes out, he throws a cigarette in his mouth, He lit it, took a big drag, and he blew it out. And he takes that cigarette, and he's like, "Here, little man, this will help calm your nerves." And I took that cigarette, I put it in my mouth, I took a big drag just like he did, and I blew it out. I didn't cough up a lung, I didn't even cough, It was smooth. Hair on my arm stood up, I had a rush in my brain, and I didn't think about my miserable life for 3 minutes. And then I had another one. And then before I went home that afternoon, I had a third. That weekend, I was hanging out at this party with them. Now I'm an 11-year-old kid, hanging out with the 20-year-old crowd. And they got a big party going on. This guy walks over, he sits on the couch where I was sitting, And he said, "Man, Jimmy told me what was going on with you. Sorry." I was like, "Thanks." He's like, "Here." He gave me a pack of cigarettes. What a nice guy. He gave me a pack of cigarettes. I was 11. Nobody went to the cops. Nobody told my parents what was going on. This guy just gives me a pack of cigarettes. And I'm smoking, looking through the dining room into the kitchen, and everybody's having a good time. And I walked in there to see what was going on. There's this big keg on the counter. And this guy looks at me, he takes a cup, he fills it up beer, and he goes, "Here, little man, time to become a man. Time to become a man at 11. So I drank that beer, drank another one, started doing shots. And a couple weeks later, I was at a bonfire party, and this guy had this funny looking cigarette, like it was twisted up, right? And I was like, "What kind of cigarette is that?" Here. And I started smoking weed, back when it was weed. And so I'm smoking weed, smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol. I'm 11, right? And it boggles my mind. I tell people this, and they're like, "Wow, that was kind of young, huh?" Kind of young. You think? Yeah, it was kind of young. My developing brain. In the middle of trauma, divorced parents, sexual abuse, physical abuse, my world falling apart, failing school, getting suspended each week. Yeah, it was kind of young to put nicotine, alcohol, and THC into the developing brain. So I was on Quaaludes at 13 years of age. I was on other pills at 14, mescaline 14. I snorted cocaine for the very first time at 16 years of age. And at 17, I learned what freebasing cocaine was. They call it crack now. Freebasing cocaine, right? At 18 years of age, I snorted my first line of heroin, back when it was heroin, right? And then someone showed me how to put it in a hypodermic needle and plunge it into my arms. And at 19 years of age, I met crystal meth. Methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin, weed, pills, a garbage pail drug addict. I remember one time I went into a treatment center and the woman said, "What's your drug of choice?" And I was like, "More." She goes, "What do you mean? I never heard of that drug before." It's more whatever drug you got. See, if I don't have to feel, if I could be somebody else, if I could mask the pain and escape, that's the drug for me. And I always had drugs because there was drugs no matter what drugs there were. That was my drug of choice. Anyway, I was a full-blown out-of-control drug addict from 18 till 28. When I went to prison, I ended up in prison. 1995, I went to prison, and I did 12 years. 12 years behind the wall. 4 New Jersey state prisons. I ended up in Rahway State Prison. They call it East Jersey State Prison. And there was a program going on there. And the COs were watching me, and they saw that I was really trying to change now. I wanted to turn my life around. So they asked me if I'd be interested in getting involved in the Scared Straight program. And so I did. I don't know if you ever saw it. They turned it into a reality TV show, Beyond Scared Straight. Anybody ever saw Beyond Scared Straight? So I consulted on that show for Amy for 5 seasons. But I was on Scared Straight in Rahway State Prison, and if you never saw it or heard of it, the concept is, little Johnny's in a lot of trouble. He's vandalizing, shoplifting, smoking weed, disobeying his parents, skipping school. So mom and dad or the grandparents or the aunts and uncles, whoever's the guardian, right? Or if the kid's on probation, the probation officer. They want to scare the kid. So they want to bring him to prison so the kid can see what waits for them if they stay on this path. And then there's 30 guys like me in a prison, and we're in their face. We're trying to scare them, spitting at them and threatening them. I'm going to kill you if you end up in here, bro. And then little Johnny's supposed to wet his fucking pants. And he's getting all scared. And then he's going to go home and listen to his mommy and do his homework. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way, right? How many of you think that works, though? Let me see a show here. How many of you know it doesn't work? How many? Of course it doesn't. Right? But anyway, it makes for good reality TV. So I'm sitting in visit hall every day, and my wife is visiting me in prison. She never missed a visit. August 26th, I'll be married for 30 years. I've been married to my wife for 29 years. And she's had a husband for about 6. You know what I'm saying? I've had a wife for 29 years. She's had a husband for about 6. So she sat in visit halls and listened to me complaining, complaining about prison. She's raising 2 kids on her own, working 2 jobs, paying all the bills, making sure I got stamps at commissary, and I'm complaining. I don't know if it makes sense to anybody, but anyway. Sometimes we only understand things in hindsight, you know what I mean? We only understand things looking backwards, you know what I mean? Man, you don't know what it's like in this prison. Yeah, I understand. I feel so bad for you, you fucking asshole. You don't know what it's like raising kids and raising 3 kids, because I'm like, you know what I mean? Anyway, every Sunday she's listening to me complain about scared straight. I don't like it. I don't like negative reinforcement. I don't like threatening kids, screaming at kids, you know what I mean? She goes, well, why do you keep doing it? And this is really important. She said, why do you keep doing it? Every weekend you tell me you're going to quit. You keep with it. I go, yeah. But at the end of every session, Wednesday a session, a Saturday a session, right? At the end of every session, they give you 30 minutes one-on-one with a kid. And you sit across from each other at a cafeteria table, and you can talk to the kid. It ain't screaming, it ain't threatening, it ain't the cameras no more. It's just talking to them, right? And they tell you, get in their head. That's when you get in the kid's head. And my wife's like, why don't you get in their heart? I was like, what do you mean? She's like, get in their heart. Why are they there? I tell her why they're there. She's like, their head's probably mush, like yours, And then she goes, where do they go after the prison visit? And I was like, they go back to the same friggin' environment that produced them. What changes? I'll go, babe, that's my point is nothing changes. The only chance I have is half an hour one-on-one with them. She goes, stop trying to get in their head. Start getting in their heart. And I'm telling you, the stories that these kids would have told you, I don't care how tough you are. I don't care how many teardrops you got on your cheek. I don't care how badass gang-banging you are, thug you are. The stories that these kids would tell you bring you to tears, right? And I started getting in their heart. And when I got out of prison, I realized that was the purpose of my life. God put me in hell to show me what freedom was. God put me in bondage to show me how I needed him to be free. And he revealed the purpose of my life to me in the Scared Straight program in prison. So I said, this is what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I'm going to go reach kids. I'm going to make sure kids don't grow up to be me, man. I'm going to go reach kids. Where can I go see the most kids? Well, school, those assemblies where they put 1,000 kids in a gym or an auditorium. I'm going to go start reaching kids. So I got on the phone. I started calling some principals. Hey, good morning. I just got out of prison. I'd like to come talk to your children. Hello? Hello? They hung up on me. Babe, he hung up on me. My wife was like, just call another one. Good morning. I just got out of prison. I'd like to come by and talk to your kid. Hello? Hello? I kept getting a dial tone. Who the hell would want convicts going to school talking to kids? I kept getting no for an answer. Well, I didn't give up. I mean, there's a lot of times in my life that I got the answer no. Anybody in this room got the answer no a lot? Yeah. So I didn't give up. I mean, sometimes, if the door was locked, I found the window. You know what I'm saying? Too soon? No. Too soon for some of you? Okay. Well, anyway, I got in. You know what I'm saying? I didn't let things stop me. So no wasn't going to stop me either. I decided I was going to fight. So I went to some police academies. I went to some Boy Scout troops. I went to Boys and Girls Clubs. I went to Big Brothers, Big Sisters. I started going to all alternative schools. They'll let anybody into an alternative school to talk to kids. You could be a serial killer with a warrant that lets you talk to alternative school kids. No kidding. Yeah, we'll worry about that warrant later. Go talk to the kids right now. You know what I'm saying? And I did everything I could. And I was doing a group with the Boys and Girls Clubs in Newark, New Jersey. And Shaquille O'Neal was coming to drop $6 million on the Boys and Girls Clubs for technology. You know, a little donation, $6 million. Okay, that's the kind of man Shaq is. He dropped $6 million on the Boys and Girls Clubs. That's where he went as a kid. The Newark Boys and Girls Club, where I'm doing a group for about 150 black and brown kids every single week. And they asked a couple of us to warm him up, you know? And they asked me to tell my story. So I got up in that group, in that meeting, public meeting, all the politicians, you know, were there, and the media was there, and I told my story. And this man named Cory Booker, I don't share his political beliefs, but he's an amazing person. I've known him a long time. He was a city councilman in the city of Newark, and he came over to me after the presentation. He says, my man, I never heard a story like that. You got to go talk to the kids in these schools. I'm like, yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to do, but nobody wants to ex-convict go talk to the kids. And he said, I'll take care of that. I'm going to take care of that. The very next day, I got a phone call from the superintendent of schools in Newark Public Schools, and they invited me for a meeting. I'm going to share my story with you pretty briefly, but I have one of the most famous cases in New Jersey history. You know, front page of the New York Times shit. And I'm pretty famous, and a lot of people thought I went to prison for life, you know? Should have, deserved it, but I didn't. And all of a sudden, now I'm coming into their school system, so they all wanted to hear my story. And there was about 50, 60 people in this little Board of Education room, and they asked me to get up and tell my story. So they gave me a test. They said, we're going to give you 2 schools and see how you do. Weequahic High School in Newark, New Jersey had an 11% graduation rate. Eastside High School in Newark, New Jersey had a 13% graduation rate. Those are the 2 schools they gave me as a test. So I get to the school, first school, Weequahic High School, right? And dark-skinned African-American man comes out of the office. And he says, oh, how you doing? Did you bring the presenter with you? And I was like, I'm the presenter. And he looks over his glasses, and he's like, hold my calls. This should be good. And we're walking down the hallway to the auditorium, and I heard something about they're going to eat this white boy alive. Really didn't know what he meant. So we walked in the auditorium. Oh, I was the only Caucasian in the building, yo. I was the only Caucasian in the building. And this dark-skinned African-American heavy-set principal gets up, takes the mic, and says, hey, shut up. We got a speaker. That was my introduction. Oh, okay, let's get this started, you know? And he came up after 90 minutes, yo. You could have heard a pin drop. I was the only white person in that building, yo. See, kids don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. And kids will smell right through you. You're fake, put it to the kid test. You know what I mean? Girls, bring your boyfriend home and let your kids smell it. You know what I mean? Bring the girl, let your kids check them out. Kids can see right through you, and they know if you're fake. You got to be real with kids. Kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I did Weequahic High School. I did Eastside High School. They gave me the entire city school district of Newark, 37 schools. That next year, I started doing Essex County, Union, Bergen County, all over North Jersey. And by 2014, I'd become the #1 book school presenter in America. The #1 book school presenter in this country. Yeah, thank you. Now I'm the #1 book school presenter on the fucking planet. 27 other countries. Ain't nobody, listen, trust me, I am by far not the smartest person in the room. I don't care if it's just me and one other dude in the room, okay? I ain't the smartest person in the room. A lot of damage was done to this cranium, okay? I ain't that smart, huh? But there ain't no one on this planet that will outwork me. No one. I love Everett Thomas. He's a good guy, a friend of mine. Anybody know him? E.T., the hip-hop preacher? Listen, man, How many of y'all got phones? You got phones in here? You got a lot of phones across the Huh? No phones in here. Well, when you get one, okay, you watch YouTube. How many, when you get your phone back, you watch YouTube videos? You need to stop watching Nas X, okay? For sure, stop watching him, man. I mean, listen to him because the guy's talented as can be. Just can't watch him because, well, you know what I mean. Stop watching TikTok. Fucking don't even have TikTok on your phone. It's an absolute waste of every second you spend on that shit. Feed your mind. Denzel Washington, Matthew McConaughey, Les Brown, Gary Vee, Norman Vincent Peale, Tony Robbins, E.T. the Hip Hop Preacher, Les Brown. Feed your mind with positivity. Motiversity. You want to go to school? Go to Motiversity. I got a channel daily on motivation. Watch motivational videos. There's a great expression, garbage in, garbage out. You feed garbage in, you're only going to get garbage out. So feed your soul, feed your mind. Stop listening to lyrics that every other word is N and B. Stop listening to the glorification and aggrandizing of guns and gangs and drugs. Fuck that shit. I got a defect of character in case anybody didn't know. I use a little bit too much profanity. I try not to listen to music with any in it because I got enough of it in my mind anyway. I'm trying to stop it, but they're not. It's not profanity anywhere. They're just sentence enhancers. That's all. All right, that was funny in my head. I was a full-blown drug addict out of control, but somehow, some way in my 20s, right? Somehow, some way in my 20s, I found success. I started a package delivery business in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I met my wife. Man, the most smoking hot redhead you ever seen in your life. I'm telling you, I married. You know that expression, married up? Yo, so far up, I couldn't see that far up. I married way up. And I got this girl, I snatched her up before she knew what's going on, you know what I mean? Because she had no idea about the addiction. I was a functioning addict. Any other functioning addicts in here? Who was a functioning addict, right? Yeah, I was functioning, all right. And I built a multi-million-dollar company. I didn't have any money to start it, no capital, but I had an idea, and I knew the idea was going to work. And I found a guy that retired from UPS after 30 years, a multi-millionaire. So he had money, and I knew he was going to understand my idea. And he bought into it, and he put the money behind it, and we started a small package delivery business in Charlotte, North Carolina, called American Messenger Services. 1989, we're in business about 10 months. We did $278,000. 1990, we did $27 million. We were on the cover of Inc. magazine, October 1991, based on our jump in sales and revenue. We were the 9th fastest growing privately held company in America. We did $47 million in 1991. I was making more money than I could spend, and that's kind of a funny expression or a statement when you're a drug addict, but I was really making more money than I could spend. But as an addict, you know that there's no such thing. And when that addiction level gets to that money level, well, then there's no amount of money that can support the addiction. My addiction began at the age of 11, but my addiction grew balls when I became a millionaire. I was making more money than I could spend. I built a 5,400 square foot house on Lake Norman, North Carolina, and I filled it with artwork and collectibles. We had cars, I had a boat, I had a couple of jet skis, I had everything. And I had an insatiable meth and heroin addiction that was destroying me. I was at the right place at the right time, and I'm an entrepreneur, and no one can outwork me. So I'm building this business while I'm destroying my soul. And it didn't take long before I lost it all. I lost it all. My business partners had an intervention. We brought in so many investors that my shares got diluted to 11%. And they gave me an ultimatum in a conference room. They said, listen, you're going to treatment, or we're buying out your shares and firing you. My father was sitting at the conference table, and I don't know if anybody in this room has an old man like me. I never saw that man cry in my entire life until I was 27 years of age. And he's crying at the conference table because his son is destroying his life. Now, my wife is crying hysterically, but my wife cries at Shark Tank when they don't get the money. Okay, like she cries all the fucking time. She cries at commercials, I can't even watch the Super Bowl with this girl. She cries at commercials, right? Sitting at this end of the conference table is the guy from the rehab, and he's telling me about 12 steps, none of which I want to take. I want to step the hell out to my car and get high. Like, who are you again? Like, and he's telling me about this treatment program I'm going to. And I'm like, who are you talking to? I ain't going nowhere. You're going to treatment for 9 months. And I'm like, 9 months? That's more than hockey season. I ain't going anywhere. What are you talking about? And they're like, if you don't go to get treatment, you're done. We're buying your shares and firing you. I said, you can't do that. I'm a part owner. He goes, you own 11%. What sits before you is 89%. We had a little vote before he showed up today. You don't go to treatment, you're going out of this company. We're buying out your shares and firing you. I go, yeah, what are my shares worth? And the corporate attorney opened up his folder and he says, $258,000. I go, 258? Write the check, yo. Write the check. I'm rich. 258. I'll never have to work another day the rest of my life. My father's begging me to stop. My wife is screaming at me. I'm sitting there with a $258,000 check, and I hit the Bank of America. You know what I'm saying? I deposited that check, and I was penniless in 54 days. Not only did I spend $250,000, I spent everything I had in the bank, and I pawned and sold everything in that house. I liquidated my life. So we're sitting in this foreclosed house. The sheriff's office notice is on the door. We got days until we're getting removed from this house. I got nothing, no money, nothing left to sell. And I say to my wife, something's got to change. She goes, yeah. I said, I think it's the drugs. Fucking, you're kidding me, right? You think it's the drugs? It's the drugs, Michael. Yes, it's the drugs. I know there's just too much of it. It's everywhere. I can't get away from it. We're going to have to move somewhere where there's no drugs. She's like, what? Yeah, we got to move somewhere where there's no drugs so I don't have temptations to do it. Where's there no drugs? And I said, New Jersey. There's no drugs in New Jersey. We'll just go back to New Jersey. My uncle has a company. He'll give me a job and we'll really start our life. So we moved back to New Jersey. Got a furnished first floor apartment, Belleville, New Jersey. My uncle lived in the next town, Bloomfield, New Jersey. And while my wife was unpacking our boxes, I said, babe, I'll be right back. I'm going to get something to eat and drink for you and the kids. And I went to the convenience store and I got some chips and chain sandwiches and drinks. And it's all sitting on the seat. I'm in the car, about to hang a left out of the parking lot to go back to this little house. And I look right, and there's the skyline to Newark, New Jersey. And I was like, yo, Brick City. I heard they had good drugs down there. I know no one in this room has ever uttered these two words in their life. I said to myself, just once. Anybody ever said just once before? Anybody ever said just once every day? You just said once every, yeah, I just said just once. And I did, I just went just once. Of course, I stayed in Newark 3 days. 3 days. Think about this for a second. This is 1994. We didn't have these things. This girl, my wife, she's from West Virginia, right? I married her anyway, but she's from West Virginia, right? She's real naive. She's like a mixture between Dolly Parton, Shania Twain, and Dixie Chicks, okay? She ain't never been above the Mason-Dixon line in her life. Now I got her in New Jersey. She doesn't know a neighbor. She has not a penny in her pocket. And she's got 2 kids. And I take off to go get something to eat, and I'm gone 3 days. What a husband, huh? So I come home, I open up the kitchen door, and she's sitting at the kitchen table crying her eyes out, Kleenex all around her. She looks up at me crying, she's like, you promised. You said you were gonna click clean. This was gonna be a fresh start, what am I gonna do? And I shook her off and went to bed because I was tired. I've been up for 3 days, you know what I'm saying? So I got up in the morning, and I was jonesing, needed to get high. I had no money, no gas. So I went and stole some gas, and then I went to Walmart, stole a couple computers, put them in a shopping cart, went and sold them, bought some drugs, and I should have had a Staples button on my dashboard, you know? That was easy, you know what I'm saying? So I started doing it again and again and again. I think I started the Home Depot scam, you know? I think I started it. I think Blockbuster Video went out of business because of me. I think Borders went out of business because of me, too. If I could steal it and make money off it to get high, that became my new MO. I started breaking into people's houses. I remember this one house, Livingston, New Jersey. I opened up the pocket doors of the closet, and there's all these cop uniforms staring at me, and I was like, oh shit, I'm in a cop's house. I bet he's got a gun, though. So I found his service revolver. I stole his service revolver. And now I'm holding up gas stations, armed robbery, to get money for my drug addiction. I was running a $47 million corporation as vice president of sales and marketing with over 400 employees in a 5,400 square foot house. And now I'm running around New Jersey with a stolen cop's gun robbing gas stations for my drugs. Yeah, don't tell me addiction won't take you places you can't even envision. Here I am. Well, I got bad. It got worse. I'm running in and out of Newark every single day to get my drugs. I have my dope set, I have my coke set, you know how it is, right? And I got looked at. They're looking at me as an asset to them, and I'm looking at them as an asset to me, because I don't fit a profile. So they think I can do things that they can't do because of what I drive, how I look, the color of my skin. And I got blessed and embraced into a street gang in Newark, New Jersey. You know, look at me. I look gangster to anybody in this room. Now I'm popping, yo. I got tattoos and I'm reading manifestos and I'm throwing up signs. I'm popping. Yeah, I'm running, man. I'm banging. I'm so tough. I'm a heroin, meth, crack addict, banging. But I'm running weight because, for obvious reasons, I'm the guy that can do it. So I'm running weight, going to the ports of Newark and Elizabeth, running to Atlanta, getting guns, bringing it down. I ain't getting racially profiled on the highway. I mean, keep it 100, right? Well, that was my thing. But I kept getting pulled over in this city all the time when I'm coming down. Jump boys are pulling me out of the car. They're taking the crack pipes and the needles out of my pocket and stepping on it, saying, "Get out of here before you get yourself hurt." And all they ever had to do was pop my trunk, and I was done the rest of my life. So I say to big homie, "Listen, man, the heat's on me. I'm being noticed coming in and out of town. One of these days you're going to pop my trunk, and man, I'm going to lose all your shit, and I'm gone for life. We got to take this little operation to the suburbs." He's like, "The suburbs?" "Yeah, man, I live on a little cul-de-sac, man. The cops in my neighborhood, they don't even know how to spell gang. Let's bring this operation to my house." Of course, I didn't check with my wife or nothing. And so we went out to the suburbs. There was this time when these kids were cutting up drugs on my coffee table. My 5-year-old daughter, Kayla, walks in and she picks this kid's 9mm Ruger off the coffee table. She's sitting there with her finger on the trigger pointing in her face. My wife saw her from the kitchen, thank God, and ran in and snatched her up and the gun dropped. And she runs down the hallway. I was getting high in the back bedroom. She's sitting there crying and screaming at me. My daughter's screaming because she's so scared. She doesn't know what's going on. And she's trying to tell me what just happened with our daughter. What just happened? She picked up a gun, and I'm looking at her. I'm like, "Well, false alarm, babe. Look, false alarm. Everything's cool. Everything's okay." She's like, "That's it. I've had enough. I'm leaving you. I'm leaving you." And I'm looking at her. I'm like, "You ain't leaving me, boo." Boo went by. Boo left a note, yo. The note said, "Michael, I love you, and I know you'll choose me over your drugs." Choose her over drugs. What a hell of a choice that would have been. If I chose her over drugs, man, maybe I'd have saved my life. But I didn't choose her over drugs. If it was air or drugs, I would have been one suffocated drug addict. I couldn't choose hair over drugs. I couldn't choose air over drugs. Well, what does a drug addict do when they're in pain? I got high. Come home the next day and there's a big FU note on the door because the landlord changed the locks, put my stuff in black plastic bags on the porch and said, "Find a new place to live." So I'm homeless in my car. Start calling all my homeboys. Nobody wanted me to stay on their sofa. Nobody wanted me around their kids and their baby mama. We're down in the street, but we ain't down. And they don't want me around their kids and their families. So I have nowhere else to go. So I call my mother. I called my 63-year-old mother. She just retired as a nurse, sold her house, bought a condo apartment, and I moved in with my mom. What a success story, 28 years of age, gang-banging drug dealer, moving in with his mother as a full-blown addict. And she don't know too much about addiction, She doesn't know anything about addiction. I'm in my mom's house for a couple of weeks, and I'm in the bathroom one day. Just took a shower, probably the first time in a couple of weeks, right? And I'm looking at my reflection in the mirror. I'm about 120 pounds. I got abscess from my wrist to my neck, in my toes and behind my knee. I shot everywhere in my body. And I'm looking at my reflection in the mirror. And I was like, man, what do I do now? I don't know, raise the white flag, ask for help, go to mom, go to treatment, go to Crossroads, and do something. Nope. I'm looking at my reflection in the mirror, I'm like, man, you used to run a $47 million corporation. You could run some stupid street gang. You should be big homie. Yeah, that's what I came up with. Great plan. So I'm going to start running the streets. I mean, I saw a crime story, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to run the streets, man. I'm going to take over the streets. So I start doing some side deals. I start pulling off weight, doing back deals, taking guns. Everyone's suspicious about a lot of stuff, but nobody knows who to point to. And I'm doing all the deals, making all the money. And I put this drug deal together, this big heroin and meth trade between two sects who really, really didn't like each other, right? I didn't think the whole thing through. And two people got shot. And one of the kids that got shot died, and his little homie's little brother. And so I got a hit put out on me. And he said, bring him to me. I'm going to put a bullet in his head. And two kids were sent to find me. Another kid gave me a heads up, and so I took off. But I didn't really take off. I just drove around New Jersey getting high for 3 days, figuring this will all die down. And I was sitting in a rest area on the Jersey Turnpike. It was Sunday, May 14th, 1995, 3:30 a.m., and I'm plunging meth and heroin into my arms. And it dawns on me that it's Mother's Day. I've been in my mom's condo for a couple of weeks, man. I haven't even spent 5 minutes with her. So the least I can do is go home and spend Mother's Day with my mom. So I do. 7:20 in the morning, I arrive home and I walk up the sidewalk. The front door of the condo is wide open. I step inside, every light in the house is on. I was like, that's kind of weird for this time of morning. Mom! And I close the door behind me. And I walk down the hallway to where our bedrooms are across from each other, and there's my 63-year-old mother on the floor in front of her bed. She'd been strangled and murdered. And I turned her over. She died on her stomach. I turned her over, and stuff came out of her mouth, so I thought she was still breathing. So I grabbed the phone and called 911, and I'm screaming at the dispatcher that my mother can't breathe. And he's telling me how to give CPR to an unresponsive person. Within 3 minutes, cops and paramedics are at the same bedroom door, and they're staring at me. And I'm looking up in the doorway, and I'm like, help me, please help me. And the sergeant steps over my mother's dead body, and he yanks me off. He says, stop, son, stop, look, stop. Your mom is gone. Your mom is gone. My 63-year-old mother was strangled and murdered on Mother's Day morning. And I'm her piece of shit son. I'm the one who brought the chaos and havoc into her life. When that kid gave me that cigarette at age 11, they gave me that beer at age 11, that kid smoking that joint, put it in my hand at age 11. I really didn't know where it was going to take me. Nobody picks up a joint, a cigarette, an alcohol drink with the idea it's going to turn them into an addict, with the idea it's going to kill them in their 20s. It's going to ruin their whole fucking life, and they're going to shoot dope for 30 years. No one wants to be an addict. No one wants to be an addict. Then again, everybody wants to go to heaven, and nobody wants to die. Everybody wants to be clean. Nobody wants to put the work in. But we got to put the work in. If you don't put the work in, the only place success comes before work is in the dictionary. You know what I'm saying? That's right. So you got to put the work in. Well, I wasn't willing to put the work in because I couldn't even concept where I was. And you can't help someone who doesn't want to participate in their own rescue. I didn't know I needed to be rescued. I refused to even face the facts. So, here I am. The medical examiner comes, deems it natural causes, and they take my mom off for an autopsy. When someone dies suddenly, everybody shows up with casseroles, you know? We must have had 25 people in the house that night. And at 7 o'clock that night, and I answer the door. Standing in front of me is that sergeant detective that was first on the scene. 2 cops, 3 detectives, and a whole crime scene team behind them, and they start walking into the living room. And we're like, what's going on? And the detective says, well, your mother died of asphyxiation. She was strangled to death. And my sister runs across the living room like she's going to attack me. This is your fault. You brought this into her life. They were probably looking for you. And the detective snapped his head around and says, who's they? Son, she said they were looking for you. Who's they? Young lady, who's they? You know, hold on, time out. Son, come with us. We'll get to the bottom of this. So they take me down to the Rockaway Township Police Department, and I sit in that little room with the table and 3 chairs. Yo, you can judge me if you want. I become snitch of the year. I told on myself for everything I could think of. Yo, if I peed in public, I told on myself. I gave myself up in shit I probably didn't even do. because someone came in my mom's house and took her life, so I knew these fine detectives, they were going to help me get to the bottom of this. Well, 7 gang task force members descended onto the police station, and they're on the other side of that mirror glass taking notes. And off they go to start investigating this murder of an innocent 63-year-old woman in their township. Lasted about 4 hours, this interrogation. And a cop came from the house and he threw a duffel bag on the interrogation table and they dumped it out. I had about 1.5 pounds of meth. I had pipes and pills and needles and weed. I had everything. And they're like, what the hell is this? What is this? Wait a minute. What are you, a junkie? Is this yours? Take your hoodie off. And I took my hoodie off. Man, I'm a zombie. Abscesses all over my body. A full-blown intravenous IV. These are 40, 50 times a day shooting dope and coke and meth. And they're like, what'd you do, snap the killer? What? What did you do? Snap the killer? Did you kill your mom in the drug rage? What are you talking about? They took that crazy theory to a judge. And the judge says, what's your evidence? You found her body? Come on, man. I need probable cause. Denied. They went to a woman judge, figuring they had a chance with the woman judge, right? She says, is there a life insurance policy? Well, yeah, but the brother collects everything. They took Michael out because of his addiction. So what's his motive then? He's got nothing to gain. You're telling me this man snapped and killed his mom on Mother's Day. Is there a history of rage? Is there a history of violence? No, 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 denied. They went to the assignment judge. That judge said, gentlemen, stop judge shopping. I've gotten 2 calls. I knew you were coming. If you don't give me probable cause, I will not give you a warrant for this man's arrest. Come back when you have probable cause. Now, in the state of Arizona, in the state of New Jersey, in 48 states across this country, there is only 3 ways to get arrested. Only 3. You get caught red-handed committing a crime, you're getting arrested. You get a crime investigated and the detectives think it's you, so they put a little theory together. And if probable cause exists in that theory, the judge gets a warrant and you get arrested. Well, that didn't work in my case 3 times. There's only one other way to get arrested, my friends. It's called the grand jury indictment. And usually it comes after you've been sitting in the county jail for 2 years on a bail that you can't make, right? And the only reason they indict us is to take us to trial. The real only reason they indict us is so we'll plead out. Because 90% of us plead out. We don't go to trial. If we all decided to start going to trial, the criminal justice system would shut to a halt. We can't give everyone a trial. That's why the plea bargain system exists. And it's why we have a 72% racial disparity in our criminal justice system. Just saying. So we have a plea bargain system. They indicted me. Since I couldn't be arrested off of a warrant, since they had real no evidence, I didn't kill my mother. I caused her death. I got her killed. My mom is dead because of me, and I have to carry that the rest of my life. But I didn't do it. So I buried my mom. 6 days after she died, we had a service at the church and a funeral. I carried her casket out of the church. I sat at her gravesite for 6.5 hours after they lowered her into the ground, shooting heroin and meth into my arms. I walked 4 miles home in the rain, sat on my mom's living room sofa crying my eyes out until 6:30 in the morning when my brother got up. He said, you know, we're going to have to go through mom's affairs, so take a shower and we have to do this. So I took a shower, got high, and sat at the table with my brother. I opened up the door. The day of my mother's funeral, they impaneled the grand jury, and they issued a sealed indictment for my arrest. I opened up the door, 2 cops, 3 detectives walk in the living room with a grand jury indictment in their hand. You're under arrest for the first-degree murder of your mother. Click, click. And they cart me outside. And on my front lawn are 3 reporters and 3 photographers from the local paper, the New Jersey State paper, and the New York Times. I get brought to the county jail logged on $1 million cash-only bail, first time in jail in my life. I'm on $1 million cash bail, charged with the first-degree murder of my mother. And the CO throws the front page of the New York Times in there on the intake unit. And there I am above the fold in full color, walking across my front lawn handcuffs with a cop on each arm. And the headline reads, "Son arrested for Mother's Day murder." I just want you to imagine that for a second. Just imagine that for a second. Most everyone in this room raise their hand, they've been in jail before. Yeah. Imagine sitting on an intake unit and the CO throws the front page of the paper in there and you're charged with the murder of your mom on Mother's Day. How do you think it went for me? I did the best I could. So I'm on the medical unit a couple of days later and I get called over to the courthouse and I meet my public defender. Keep getting that messed up. I meet my public defender. My public defender. I met him. And I met him 3 more times in 22 months. I met my public defender 4 times in 22 months. On the 4th time I met him, he informed me that we're getting ready to do pre-trial motions. And I was like, what are those? Pre-trial for what? We're going to trial? Yeah, the state of New Jersey wants to give you a stipulated polygraph exam, but don't worry, I've turned them down. What are you talking about turning them down? A lie detector test? I'll take it right now. No, son, no, stop. A stipulated polygraph exam means you take the test. No matter what the results are, they can use it against you in a court of law. Well, it's okay, I'm going to pass. I know, nobody can pass a polygraph. Listen, I've been a lawyer for 30 years. You're not taking a stipulated polygraph exam. I said, if you don't let me take a polygraph exam, I'm firing you. Now, I got about $1.60 in my commissary account. I ain't getting a lawyer. And I'm trying to fire the public defender that's assigned to me. He's pissed off, but he says, you want a polygraph exam? I'll give you a polygraph exam. And he calls me over to the courthouse the next day. I did a polygraph exam. They hooked me up, the brain, the fingers, the pulse, and everything. I'm sitting in the chair. 6.5 hours later, I'm sitting in the waiting room, handcuffed and shackled to the chair. 2 sheriff's officers behind me, and my lawyer is sitting in a chair. And the examiner walks out of the room, and he looks at my lawyer, and he says, Kervick, he passed. He didn't do it. My lawyer's like, he couldn't have passed. What are you talking about? He passed? How could he pass? He can't pass. How could you pass? And I'm looking at him like, did you hear what he said? I passed because I'm telling the truth. And my lawyer's like, this is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. And he walks out of the room. Next day, I got called back to the courthouse. He calls the head of the polygraph department, the renowned polygraph artist in Manhattan, who polygraphed O.J. Simpson. He comes down to the county jail to polygraph me. 8 hours I was on a polygraph machine. Sitting in that same chair with the same 2 cops behind me, my lawyer sitting in the same waiting room chair, and they walk out of that room. He passed, flying colors. He didn't do it. My lawyer's like, you have got to be kidding me. You didn't do this. I've been fucking telling you that for 22 months. So they let me take the polygraph exam for the state of New Jersey, and I passed. I passed. So, man, I thought I knew what the scripture meant, the truth will set you free. I thought I meant what that stuff meant, right? The truth will set you free. So I go back to the jail. I've been in the county jail for 22 months. Yo, I had the best mattress on my tier, yo. I even had a pillow. My spades game was up, man. I had commissary this deep. And I gave it all away. I thought people in this room did time before, man. The commissary joke usually goes over like a... Yeah, I gave it all away because I'm getting out of jail. I'm convinced I'm getting out of jail, and I'm at the gate. CO, man, I'm supposed to be getting out. Man. I passed 3 lie detector tests. Shut up. You scream one more time, I'll put you in ad seg. Ad what? Funky, what's ad seg? They're like, shut up, man. Don't say nothing else. Maybe they don't let you out on the weekend, bro. Maybe they'll let you out on Monday. I'm like, what? All right, Monday comes. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday, 1 week after taking the state's polygraph exam, I got called to the courthouse. I get called into the conference room, shackled to the table, handcuffed to the chair. My lawyer comes in. He opens up his briefcase. He takes a folder out, puts a piece of paper down in front of me. He says, here, son, read this. My release papers, right? Plea agreement. Plead guilty to first-degree aggravated manslaughter in exchange for a prison sentence of 20 years. What's this? It's your plea agreement. Plea agreement for what? Your mom's case, what are you talking about? No, what are you talking about? I passed 3 lie detector tests. You said you believed me. He said, son, I do believe you. I do. No one can pass 3 lie detector tests if they're lying. But the state of New Jersey believes you're some sort of pathological liar and they're unwilling to drop the charge. But keep reading. It gets better. 20 years? Where does it get better? The state will agree to a change of custody after 5 years served to 5 years probation. I said, what the hell does that mean? He said, son, you plead guilty to this, man. I have you home in 3 years. You got 2 years in. I've negotiated an unheard of prison sentence. It's illegal. You sign this piece of paper and you're home in 3 years. You want me to get up in court and say, I murdered my mom on Mother's Day so I can be home in 3 years? Son, if we lose this case, I go home. And you go to prison for the rest of your life. They will never release the man convicted of murdering his mother on Mother's Day. You sign this piece of paper, and I have you guaranteed release in 3 years. In fact, I will have you in a halfway house in 6 months. Now, I didn't even know what a halfway house was. I said, you want me to get up in court and say I murdered my mom on Mother's Day so I can be home in 3 years? I pushed the paper back. I won't use the words I used that day. I told him no. I want my day in court. He snatched it up, put it in his briefcase, said, see you Monday. We'll do the best we can. The best we can. And so I go back to the county jail. No mattress, no pillow. I'm back in the county jail. And here I am, awaiting trial. Well, the following week, I get called over to the courthouse. And we start voir dire, jury selection. We used all of our presumptives, getting rid of the ones that we didn't like. And we had 10 jurors picked. All women. And so we're on lunch break, and my lawyer comes in. We're about to go back and finish jury selection. My lawyer comes in, sits down. He pulls the plea agreement out and the pen, put it on the table. He said, you ready to finish jury selection and start your trial? And I was like, I guess. And he pushes the plea agreement over. He said, son, before we go out there, I just want to ask you one last time. I just want you to reconsider one thing. And I looked at him. He stayed silent, must have been 3 minutes. He just looked at me, and I looked at him. And I picked up the pen. I thought about stabbing him in the neck. But I signed the plea agreement. I threw it down. And I said, put it behind me before I change my mind. He snatched it up. He was afraid I was going to change my mind. He said, you're making the best decision of your life. And I promise every single man and woman in this room, I thought I was making the worst decision of my life. I really did. What kind of life am I going to have? And he looks at me, he says, at least you're going to have one. So I stood out in court. He hit my leg 6 times. That's when I was supposed to answer yes. If you've ever had a plea agreement, you know you have to give a factual basis for your plea. I couldn't. And I couldn't do anything, couldn't make any statements. He said, I'm going to ask you 6 questions. Say yes every time I tap your leg. So off to prison I go. It took 10 months, but I made it to a halfway house. I went to work in the community. I went to college. I couldn't go home on a furlough because I had a violent crime, but I did the rest of the time in the halfway house. And on 5 years to the day, 5 years to the day of getting locked up, I was brought back to court. And I stood in front of that judge. The judge took my 20-year prison sentence and he vacated it. And he handed me 5 years probation. And I turned around and the redhead was sitting in the front row of the courtroom to take me home. That chick never missed a visit. And she was there to pick me up and take me home. So I get home, yo. I mean, life is good. Got my kids, got a job right away, making good money. I'm looking for a house. Got my life back. I lasted 6 months. I lasted 6 months. We're driving down the New Jersey Turnpike, and the truck in front of us is swerving. And I tried to get out of the way, I really did. But the trailer jackknifed it, came down and crushed the driver's side of our little car. My wife opened up the passenger door and got out without a scratch on her, and they had to cut me out. My wife tells this story. She said, I was sitting there looking at this truck crushed our car, and I just knew my husband was dead. I'm like a cat, you know. I got 9 lives. They cut me out of that car, and they rushed me to St. Francis Hospital in Trenton, New Jersey. But I had 3 cracked cervical vertebrae in my neck. I'm home from prison 6 months, and I'm in the hospital with a broken neck. The emergency room doctor says, we're going to have to operate on your husband, because if we don't, he could be paralyzed. And my wife was like, well, let's operate. Well, you guys don't have health insurance, so we're going to have to get this approved by New Jersey Charity Care. So take him home. We're putting a harness on him and a neck brace. Take him home and keep him stable. You're going to have to bring him back and forth from the hospital till we can get surgery approved and arranged. So my wife takes me home. She had rented a hospital bed because we lived in a third story. The bedroom's on the third story, and so she got a hospital bed to keep me on the first floor. And she starts taking these bottles out of this big bag that the ER doctor gave her. And she starts putting the bottles on the nightstand. Fioricet, Vioxx, Scalaxin, Mobic, Neurontin, Xanax for all that anxiety that I'm going to have, and a bottle 4 times this big that contained 360 80 milligram OxyContin. 360 80 oxys. So my naive wife starts dropping 80 oxys into my mouth. I'm 5 years, 6 months without a drug or a drink in my body, and my wife starts dropping 80 oxys in, and I ate the bottle in 7 days. And you know what the doctor did? He gave me another bottle, which I consumed in 7 days. This Indian ER doctor at the hospital walks into the room. My wife is holding me up on the gurney, I'm drooling, falling off the gurney. And the doctor comes in and goes, my God, no one has ever eaten 780 milligram OxyContin in 2 weeks. This might not be the right opioid medication for your husband. So we're going to try Vicodin and Percocet together and see if that works. The nurse brings in a box of 12 bottles of morphine liquid, takes a bottle out of the case, and is showing my wife how much to pour into a cup between pain dosages like it's fucking hot cocoa. Xanax doesn't seem to be helping your husband with his anxiety. We're going to try Valium. Sometimes people get nauseous on Valium, so we're going to try Klonopin. I was on 21 pharmaceutical drugs, 11 opioids. This was the year 2000. Opioids were Skittles. I was on 21 pharmaceutical drugs, and I don't know if there's anyone in the room like me, You put opioids here and heroin here, I'm gonna pick heroin every single time. I like dope, I don't like pills. So I call up my friend, and I was like, I got these things called 80 milligram OxyContin. Would you trade me dope for that? He goes, you got what? Don't call no one else. I'll be at your house in 15 minutes, and don't call anyone else. And he comes over, and he goes, how many of these things do you got? And I was like, I don't know. I mean, there's Percocet, there's Vicodin, there's Opana. He's like, holy shit, this is a drugstore. I hit the lottery. I'm like, what do you mean? Do you know what these things are worth on the street? I can get $50, $60 for an 80 oxy. I'm thinking, that's 6 bags of heroin. He goes, I'll give you a bundle for every pill. I go, criminal thinking starts to trickle in, and I was like, I need more pills. So I took I know, laughter is a form of identification, right? I took my MRIs and I went to another doctor. He puts them up in the light box, and he's like, my God, son, you must be in excruciating pain. What can we do for you? I was like, God, OxyContin and Percocet seem to help with the pain. OxyContin, Percocet, what else can we do for you? I wish I had that Staples button, That was easy. I went to doctor number 3, doctor number 4, doctor number 67. I started doctor shopping doctors in Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey. We're right in the top of the state. We're all 3 states in the mix. There's no such thing in 2000. In the year 2000, there's no such thing as a prescription drug monitoring program. And I'm walking into pharmacies, and I'm throwing prescription slips down like they're playing cards. I never had a pharmacist ask me a single question. I'm getting 9,000 opiates and 6,000 benzos a month. And I'm taking all the drugs I can. And I'm shooting meth, shooting dope, shooting coke, smoking crack, smoking weed. There's a third knock on my door. It's my probation officer. Haven't met him yet. Here, Mr. Deleon, I'd like you to pee in this cup. Okay. I got to take you to the probation department. It's like, why? This is a 15-panel cup, and you hit on 8 of the panels in the cup. There has to be something wrong with this cup. Oh, hell yeah, there's got to be something wrong with that cup right there. I mean, gotta be, couldn't possibly be. Okay. So we go out to the probation department, and they give me a new cup, and I gave a sample in that new cup. So they call the regional supervisor, they call the director, and 7 POs walk into this room. I thought I was getting jumped, yo. I really did. I got a harness on me and a neck brace, and I'm sitting in the chair, and they're all looking at the cup. And the director says, son, come here for a second. This is a 15-panel cup, and you hit on 8 of the panels in the cup. Are you on drugs? What's MOR? Oh, morphine, huh? Yeah, those 8 right there. I'm on those 8 right there. And they're like, interesting. Click, click, violation of probation. They bring me to jail. I didn't wait 2 days. The judge, who sentenced me for an unsolved murder, who turned it into aggravated manslaughter, who handed me a 20-year sentence, which was illegal to release me after 5 years. The least you could do is a 20-year sentence under the old crime laws that I got convicted, guilty under. The least you could do is a 30 with a 10. I got 5 years and released. So I got brought back in front of that judge. And he took that 20-year sentence he vacated, and he handed it right back to me. He said, have a nice life. Off to prison you go. And to this day, I'll never in my life forget the screech that came out of that redhead. My wife was sitting in the front row about 10 and a half months earlier when I came home to her, and now she's sitting in the front row of the courtroom screaming and crying as they carved me out in handcuffs off the back of the courtroom. And I went back to prison, and I did 7 more years. 7 more years. Okay, doesn't sound like a lot, I guess. 5-year gift, I turned it into a 12-year nightmare. When I went back to prison, I decided I was going to change my life. But it took a visit from my wife to put me over the edge. I was feeling sorry for myself. First of all, the only 2 times I ever got clean in my life was in a jail cell. The first time I did 5 years, the second time I did 7. The only 2 times I got clean was when I got locked up. Now, trust me, I could have got high in prison, but what's the point of that shit? Okay, I got a paranoia problem on any kind of drug. I mean, crack makes you paranoid. I got paranoid on every drug. I smoke weed, I got paranoid. Okay? Why would you want to be in a prison cell getting paranoid? Okay? So I just forget it, right? I was already at the gate looking for the FBI. I didn't need the... All right, I guess nobody ever went to a window looking for the FBI before. So, okay, maybe a couple of you did. My wife came and gave me a visit, right? And it was the first visit on my second prison sentence. I'm finishing up this couple minutes, right? So she says, this is going to be hard. I'm like, yeah, I know. She waited for 5 years, and now I'm back in prison. The whole time in 5 years visits, 5 years in prison, she never cried, not once. I thought she never cried. My daughter told me years later when I got out of prison that my wife sat in the parking lot in the car and cried every single day. But she didn't cry in front of me. So here she is, first visit on the next prison sentence. And she cries in the middle of the visit hall. And she can't stop. She's hyperventilating, she's crying, it's hysterical. Cops come over, making sure I didn't hit her, and they pull me to the side and they take her out, right? Visit over. She's like, I just don't know if I can do this again. And so I decided for the first time to man up. For the first time I was going to be a man. And I wrote her a letter. I said, don't visit me ever again. Move on with your life. I'm going to file the divorce in the law library and I'll send it to you. You need to move on with your life. Find somebody better looking. Won't be too fucking hard. Find somebody else. Move on with your life. I can't do this to you again. I love you too much. And I sent it to her. And I didn't get on the phone the whole week. I know she got the letter. Saturday morning, my wife would come visit. We didn't want anybody else to visit on Saturday because in New Jersey, if you get a second or third visit, your visits are terminated and the next visit comes in. And we wanted the whole visit time. So we told my dad, my sponsor, my lawyer, everybody, come on Sunday. If you're going to visit me, come on Sunday. Give me Saturday with just me and my wife. And everybody respected that. So here comes Saturday. I sent the letter out, told her to move on with her life. First name called in the damn visit list is Mom. Some hard-headed redhead, man. And I go to the CO, listen, I wrote my wife a letter, I told her not to come visit me. He goes, I don't care, do you want your visit or not? I was like, well, no, sir, I was going to refuse my visit. All right, I don't give a shit, go back to your cell. Deleon refused, click, you don't care. And And I guess they told her I was refusing business, so off she goes, right? So now a whole other week goes by, and I don't get on the phone at all. 2 weeks I haven't been on the phone. I don't know if anybody else in this room did time. I couldn't do my time without the phone. I'm telling you, the phone, we didn't have cell phones when I was in prison. I mean, these days it doesn't matter because you got cell phones in every cell, right? How does that work? Yeah. Laughter is a form of identification, young lady. How'd you charge that thing? It's not. Anyway, so I didn't have the phone, right? So here I am, a whole week goes by, and Saturday comes. First name called, somebody else. I didn't get called in the first hour, the second hour, third hour, fourth hour, fifth hour. I was like, oh my God, she didn't come. My wife didn't come. Okay, so she didn't come. She finally listened. So Sunday, my father was coming to visit, and I was going to tell my dad that I finally manned up in my life. I finally did the right thing. I'm going to be a man and let my wife move on with her life. I can't hold her hostage again. So I go down to the visit hall, and I'm looking around for my dad. Where the hell is he? Oh, shit. It's my wife. She came on Sunday, that sneaky little redhead. She knew I knew it wasn't going to be her. So I walked over to her, sat down in front of her. She sat down. I said, I wrote you a letter. She goes, yeah, I got it. I said, listen. She goes, no, you listen. You ever refuse a visit from me again, I'll be the first woman in New Jersey history to sneak a shank into prison and stab her husband in the visit hall. And then they're going to put me in the cell next year. I was like, well, they'll probably put you in the women's prison. She didn't think that was good fun. I said, listen. She goes, no, you listen. I married you for better or worse. I said, if you knew this was worse, would you have said I do? She said, hell no. I'd have never married your ass if I knew what you were going to put me through, but I did. So I'm going to do this. We're going to do this, and God is going to provide. And it's like, you are mentally retarded. There's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. Why are you going to wait for me? Look at me. I ain't Brad Pitt. What you waiting on? And she said, I see something in you that you don't see in yourself. And so I went back to my cell, and I started reading the Bible, not because there was nothing else to read, but to read the Bible, to ask God what he had for me. I started going to chapel, not just to get off the tier, but actually to go fellowship with God. I started reading these books, I started studying, and I started putting a business plan together. I got involved in Scared Straight, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do the rest of my life. And when I was running Scared Straight, I wrote the business plan for my life. In business school, I went to college after prison. I got 6 college degrees, big deal. I went to business school. And in business school, they teach you how to do a SWOT analysis. Anyone in this room ever been in business school before? So they teach you a SWOT analysis. You look at your business, and you look at the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. What do you do well that nobody else does? What do you not do well that everybody else does? What opportunities and markets do you not tap into? And what threats exist that you're not taking seriously? What threats do you take that are not taken seriously? So I decided I was going to do a SWOT analysis on my life. I read a book called You're the CEO of Your Life. You're the CEO of your life. So start looking at yourself as a business. It absolutely, now that I have a clearer, okay, I didn't say clear, I have a clearer mind. It boggles my mind that people would come in to treatment, get through detox, go through treatment, refuse IOP, and then go back on the streets and do the same damn thing that got us in. Listen, you want to call addiction a disease? I don't care. You want to call it a choice? I don't care. You love those 12 steps? AA is your fellowship, NA, CA, CNA, whatever it is, celebrate recovery. Who gives a shit? Find a fellowship that works for you and work it. Don't make recovery your life. Recovery is not your life. Recovery is part of your life. Make recovery the biggest part of your life if you want to, but it's part of your life. Go to meetings, fellowship with people, work the steps, and after you work the steps, I ask my sponsor, I don't go to AA meetings and NA meetings. I go when my friend is celebrating a milestone, right? I go to celebrate recovery. It's my fellowship. I'm doing a meeting right now. I did a meeting last night, so I technically go to 2, 3, 4 meetings every single week. But it's to speak. I fellowship with you. Every man and every woman in this room, you are my family. Some of you are a little darker, better looking than others, but you are my family. I don't care what color you are, what culture you are, what religion you are. You are my brother. You are my sister. And I'm going to get up in front of you and try to motivate you because I've achieved some things. I've achieved some things because I'm working hard and I refuse to drink alcohol. I drink water, yo. If I want to get crazy, I'll put some lime or lemon in that bitch. I mean, I want to get nuts. Perrier, yo, Pellegrino. Let's go. Pellegrino, like Pellegrino. I don't have to drink alcohol. And I could be out with other people. I go to big events and they're drinking. It doesn't bother me. I have 4 documentary films. I'm an award-winning documentary filmmaker. I worked for HBO, A&E, History Channel, Discovery Channel. I've shot video for CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NPR, OAN, Newsmax, everything. I've shot more people shooting drugs with a camera than I ever saw while I was shooting drugs. And it doesn't bother me one bit. It doesn't bother me one bit. You can smoke weed. If you're going to smoke weed around me, I hate the smell, so I'm going to leave, right? I don't even like nicotine. The number one causal factor to a relapse is nicotine. Don't know if you know that. And I'm telling you right now, I know some people get sick and tired of me saying this, but vaping is worse than cigarettes. Much worse. Much worse. By a show of hands, how many of you, before the age of 18, consumed alcohol? How many of you before the age of 18 consumed nicotine, even chewing tobacco? How many of you before the age of 18 smoked weed? It's 95% of us. Alcohol, nicotine, and marijuana. So here you are, 95% of us, we consume nicotine before 18, and we're in recovery, and we still consume nicotine. Nicotine is a stimulant. It reacts the same way on the brain that cocaine, Adderall, Ritalin, meth does. The same effects on the brain. Nicotine. And if you vape and you use pods, it ain't even nicotine. It's a psychostimulant called nicotine salts. They understand what they're doing. The tobacco industry understands what they're doing. I'm telling you, how many of y'all said, oh man, Michael, one thing at a time, one thing at a time. How many of y'all say that, one thing at a time? It's easier if you do everything at once. It doesn't seem that way. It's easier if you do everything at once. Quit smoking. Quit vaping. 95% of every person who relapses is smoking and vaping. I'm not saying that you smoke and vape, you're going to relapse. I know plenty of people that have been smoking for 40 years in recovery of the rooms of AA. Not saying it's going to cause a relapse, but 95% of everybody who relapses consumes nicotine in the brain. You're not allowing your brain to heal. And you have to do an analysis on your life. I don't understand. You don't want to be here, I get it. I get it. But stay in this place as long as you possibly can. And don't leave treatment and go back to life. I understand your family, your kids, your job. I don't know your life. I don't know your life. But I can tell you right now, I would never leave this place. Never leave this place until I was absolutely ready. Now, how do you know if you're ready? Well, why don't you ask your counselor? Why don't you ask everybody around you? Why don't you ask the people that have been around you for months in a treatment program, have you seen it change? Ask your clinical, ask the people, ask to be honest with you, and then do an honest assessment on your own self. What are you feeding? What are you listening to? What are you reading? What are you doing every day? Do you sit in meetings and sit there with your arms folded and not get anything out of it? Do you sit in meetings and just not participate? Do you sit in the groups and you just listen? You don't look at your life. And how many of you are carrying secrets that you've never, ever faced? I would venture to say a lot of you. So I'm going to be involved in some way, capacity, I'm not sure yet. I'm going to be involved in bringing this to Arizona, and my focus is here. Because 2/3 of all the counterfeit pills that have been confiscated in all 50 states in the last 12 months, fentanyl counterfeit pills, have been confiscated in the state of Arizona. Now the #1 cause of death in America, 18 to 45, is fentanyl. 18 to 45, #1 cause of death in our country is fentanyl. In Arizona, it's the #1 cause of death for kids 19 years of age and younger. You want to tell me how kids are dying from fentanyl? I'll tell you. The cartels, the syndicates, they're faking pills, putting it into pills, and they're sending it on Snapchat, and Instagram, and TikTok to our children in this state. If you've ever seen yourself getting up in front of a school audience, an audience of kids, and telling them your story, I want to show you how to teach them your story. Because telling your story means nothing. Teaching your story means everything. That you teach your story, and I have a whole systemic comprehensive program that shows kids, internalizes it for them, and they can apply it in their lives. Fentanyl is a poison. Secondly, I don't know if you understand this, right? Arizona legalized marijuana for recreational purposes. Congratulations, right? Here's the problem. It ain't weed no more. It ain't weed at all. It's genetically modified THC, toxins. In 2018, President Trump signed the Farm Bill. Inside the Farm Bill, the Democrats and the Republicans stuck the legalization of the hemp plant. And they realized that they could split molecules, and they could genetically modify and increase potency of Delta-9 in cannabis and Delta-9 in hemp. Everyone was like, well, hemp, it doesn't get you high. Au contraire. Yes, it does. See, now we have Delta-8 in hemp that gets you very high. Delta-10 gets you more psychoactive high than Delta-9 in cannabis. So 100% cannabis in a wax that you're dabbing out of indica, now you get 30, 40, 50% Delta-10 out of hemp, and it gets you just as high because that old expression, frying your brain, it's frying your brain. And now we're selling this garbage in vape shops and CBD shops in all 50 states. We have abandoned our children, and our federal government is not doing a damn thing about it. And these kids are eating gummy bears. I was in Green River, Wyoming, Tuesday, and I walked into a vape shop, and I bought about $60 worth of stuff so I could take it home to a lab next week in New Jersey and test it. They're selling Pop Rocks. They're selling gummy bears. They're selling Choco Sticks. They're selling bubble gum. They're selling mints that all look like candies, and they're Delta-8 and Delta-10 hemp-derived cannabis. They're THC, and it gets you very fucking high. But it's legal in all 50 states. And these kids are using it. Now, if you're in recovery and you used alcohol, nicotine, and marijuana before 18, and you struggle with heroin or meth or addiction to alcohol, it's a pretty good idea to stay away from all of it. It's also a pretty good idea to keep your kids away from this garbage. And the tobacco industry wants our kids on this garbage. So, I met a family that had a little girl, and this little girl became like my niece, right? She's amazing. Her name's Victoria. And at 18 years of age, Victoria died of an overdose, right? Her parents are multi-billionaires, David and Jackie Siegel. David Siegel owns Westgate Timeshare. He's the largest real estate holder in America. He owns the largest resort in the world. And they built the largest residential property in Orlando, Florida. They turned it into a reality TV show called Queen of Versailles. I don't know if you ever saw it. It's on Discovery Plus channel right now. And they lost their daughter. Multi-billionaires, famous in Hollywood. They know everyone, right? And they lost their daughter to an overdose. 2 weeks after they buried her, they found her diary. And it was rough. It was tough. I cried the first 13 times I read it. And the family said, what do you think we should do with this? Well, I think we should publish it. We got to publish it. We blacked out people's names and kids' names and privacy things for other people. But this is her actual diary. At the back, we got the impact of her 7 brothers and sisters and how her death impacted them. And I put a lot of stuff in the back about drugs. I'm revamping it all. It's going to be a new book come out next year. But I want to put this book in the hands of every kid in America, every high school kid, because it was written by a teenage girl, and teenage girls are crazy. They write with a lot of vivid descriptions. So there's a lot of F-bombs in here. And I don't want to put a profanity-laced book in a child's hands without their parents' permission. So I get parents' permission, but I put this in the hands of kids in high schools all over this country. And about 6 months ago, I had a school, and it was shut down for the day, right, for something reason. A bomb-threatened by a kid was called in, who he ended up getting arrested. But anyway, the school was canceled for the day, and they rescheduled for a couple months later. And there I am with a couple of these books, a couple boxes of the books, and it was going to cost me $80 to put them on the plane and bring them home. So I was doing a recovery center that night, and there was about 100 people in the meeting. And so I brought these books, and I said, you know what? I think these books would be good for us. I think these books would be good for us to reflect. Again, how many of you are parents in this room? Almost everyone. How many of you are grandparents or aunts and uncles if you're not a parent, right? So everyone in this room. I think this book is a cautionary tale, and I think you can get a lot out of it. So I brought one for all of you. If I don't have enough, I'll get more. I'd like you to read this book, and I think it's going to impact your life. And if you're a parent, it'll definitely impact your life. So I'd like to give everyone in this book room a book at the end. If you want to join my mission to speak to kids, or to speak in jails, or to speak at treatment centers, I want to help you, train you, and show you how to teach your story instead of telling your story. And if you'd like, I'd love you to get involved. And after the meeting, after the group, we'll offer it to everybody in the room. You're going to hear a lot more about it in the next couple of days. And if you're interested, I'd like you to sign a list. Within the next 2 weeks, we're going to put something together to where we know exactly what we're going to do. I think I'm going to come together and do something with Crossroads. If not, I'm going to do it on my own, because I'm doing it on my own now. I just need help. In the last 12 months, we lost 100,360 people to an overdose of drugs. 100,360. In 2011, I released my first documentary film all by myself. It was called Kids Are Dying. Kids Are Dying, right? I premiered the movie. Richie Sambora came to the event to speak at the event, right? And there was a Q&A session at the end of the movie. And a woman that was in the front row, she was featured in the movie, right? Her daughter was featured in the movie. She lost her daughter to a heroin overdose. And she got up and she said, Michael, thank you so much for making a part of this film. Thank you for including my daughter. I don't know if you heard the announcement today. This was March 2011. She said the CDC announced this morning that we had the worst 12 months in American history. We lost 32,700 people to an overdose of drugs in 2010. She looked at me and she said, do you think it's going to get better, or do you think it's going to get worse? And I said, I do not think anything. I know for a fact it's going to get worse. It's going to get much, much worse. In 10 years, it will double. I was wrong. It tripled. It tripled. Ladies and gentlemen, 30,000 overdose deaths last year were not counted as overdose deaths. They were counted as COVID. We had 130,000 overdose deaths last year. Next year, when they don't have COVID to hide behind, there's going to be 140,000, 150,000 overdose deaths. And if China continues their carte blanche importation of fentanyl in our country, we're going to lose hundreds of thousands of kids. So here's what I'm asking you. Here's what I'm asking you. The least amount of thing I'm asking you to do, the least, is to stay in Crossroads as long as you possibly can. When you're done with treatment, don't leave. Do PHP, IOP, OP, do everything you possibly can. Get down to 90 and 90. Do everything you possibly can. You're rebuilding your life. You're rebuilding your life. And it's like a hurricane hits your life. It's like a tornado hits your life. And the only thing you've got left is the foundation, the slab. You know when a tornado comes through? Everything's gone, man. Everything's gone. The only thing left is the slab. Well, guess what? The slab you built isn't thick enough, isn't strong enough, okay? So sit here at Crossroads and build that thing up a little higher. Build your foundation up a little higher. Put some real strong stuff in there and build it with bricks this time, right? And stay here as long as you possibly can. If nothing else, to thine own self be true, if nothing else, stay clean and sober. Do you and live a life where recovery is a beautiful big part of your life. And if you want to get involved a little bit and do some advocacy, the experts of drug addiction and alcoholism are sitting in this room. There is no one out there that's never been through what we've been through that knows more than we do. We got to save our kids. If we don't save our kids, No one will. I ask you to get involved if it's something that you're interested in doing. We're opening up an office here in Arizona. If things go well in 2 weeks, I might be opening up 10 offices in Arizona, you know what I'm saying? We'll see what happens, but I need your help. If you're interested, I'll give you my card. If nothing else, stay clean and sober. If nothing else, you want to tell your story. If you want to tell your story, I have a website called recoveryarmy.com. And on that website is a lot of people who have told their stories. So if you don't want anything but a little bit of hope, and you want to see some hope in some other people, a lot of famous people that you recognize, if you just want to get a little bit of hope from someone, watch the videos. Watch the videos when you need a little uplift every day, when you need a little reminder of how amazing you are, when you need a little reminder of the purpose God made in you, you need a little reminder of why you're so important and why you're so valuable and how God created you with value and purpose. Watch some videos. And if you want to get involved a little bit more, please get involved with me. So I thank you so much for your time tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you.